Hi guys, I want to talk to you today about interviewing a subject matter expert, which is something that you will do with some regularity if you write newsletter copy. Most of your newsletter articles are going to be informed by the expertise of somebody who's an authority in their field, and we call these people subject matter experts. You might see it abbreviated as an SME. That's what that means. And these are just people who happen to know something about an area that they are specialists in. So it could be someone who knows a lot about fashion or automobiles, or in my case, it's usually people who know a lot about healthcare. So I'll be interviewing surgeons or doctors who are specialists in one area or another. They don't have to have fancy credentials or a degree. You could be interviewing someone who is an expert in going to college and being a college student on a really tight budget in an expensive city. And in that case, it would be technically a subject matter expert in that area, and not somebody who has, tons of education per se, or a fancy title, but they would technically be classified as a subject matter expert. So I'm going to share a little presentation with you here that I've put together and give you some of my favorite tips, some of the things that I've learned that maybe have surprised me a little bit as I've conducted these interviews. So you're going to talk to a subject matter expert for most of the newsletter articles that you do, and a lot of them are going to be people that the organization connects you to. Most of the subject matter experts I talk to are people who are internal to the organizations, and I don't usually have to track down sources. It's not like doing journalism. I'm usually told who my interview will be with and given their contact information. I'm responsible for scheduling the interviews and coordinating, coming up with the questions, all of that information, but I don't have to track down sources. One thing that has surprised me a lot is that these people usually like to talk. And now that I've been through a few of these interviews, it does make sense. There are people who have worked in their fields to become, in a lot of cases, at the pinnacle of their fields. These are the topics they are absolutely most passionate about, and you are coming to them as someone who wants to ask questions about exactly what they do, that they are experts at, and that they care the most about, and you want to give them some publicity for this thing that they know the most about. So I would say about 75% of the time that I interview an SME, I open with a question that's something like, what do you want people to know about this topic? And they will just talk for 20 minutes without me having to give a follow-up question, really. But I'm always prepared with a list of questions, and I usually have about 20 questions and expect to get through somewhere around 5 to 10 of them if I do ask questions. But a lot of the time I don't need any questions, and so you shouldn't be surprised if that happens. And really, as an interviewer, it's lovely when you don't have to ask questions, because it makes your job really easy. The thing that's hard about interviewing subject matter experts is getting them on the phone. Not surprisingly, these are really busy people, and finding 20 or 30 minutes of their time can be a challenge. So I find just being patient and persistent, so just following up every few days or every week, depending how tight your deadline is, and reminding them, give them a little carrot, just remind them that this is publicity for the cause, the issue, the surgery, the new technology that they really care about, and you do want to help them promote it and get word out to the world at large. So just remind them that it's something good and that you're there, and you're not really pressuring them, but you do want to remind them that you're here to talk to them. Make sure you clarify your goals. So if I end up going through multiple rounds of revisions and I'm really frustrated with the revision process, it's usually because there was a goal that the organization or the subject matter expert had in their head that they didn't communicate to me, or I failed to ask about or fully hear for one reason or another. at the beginning of the process. So the more you can make sure you understand what the organization wants the piece to say and that your subject matter expert wants the piece to say. So even though your job may not explicitly be to make the piece fit the goals of the subject matter expert, your job will not be done until the subject matter expert is happy with the piece. And the more high profile this person is, the more that's going to be true. So make sure in the interview process, you ask the person you're interviewing what they would like the piece to say. I might ask questions like, is there anything you really want to make sure people know about this? How would you like this topic to be portrayed? What kind of tone do you want the piece to have? Some kind of question like that. You may even flat out ask, do you have any goals for this piece? Or is there anything you want me to be careful not to say? You may let them know your basic plan for the piece. You know, it's not journalism. We don't need to keep things separate from our sources. We don't need to be unbiased. We are positively promoting the organization, and usually the subject matter experts also work for or with the organization. So it's okay to be clear about our goals. And try to make sure that you're on the same page. As the writer, you don't have to give up control over how you reach the goals. That's your job as the writer to strategize how that happens. But yeah, the more you can clarify that everyone's on the same page about what the goals are, the fewer surprises you'll have as a writer later down the line. And it makes your job so much easier to have all that stuff clear. And not that you can always control that, because sometimes people aren't consciously aware what their goals are until they see a piece and realize, oh yeah, that's not in there. And that's okay. That's part of the job too. But try to get these things clarified. So basic tips on technology: make sure you record the piece whenever possible. A lot of these interviews are going to happen on the phone or over Zoom. If you do this over Zoom, great, just hit the record button and record it. If you do it over the phone, record whenever possible. Make sure you also take notes, because recordings don't ever work 100% of the time. Something can always come up, and then if you didn't take notes, you are just SOL. So I use an app called Tape-A-Call, and I use the pro version. I think it cost me about $10 one time, and now I just have it forever. It doesn't always work. I've had a couple of instances where the recording just didn't come through, or I couldn't transfer the file. From looking online at comments, I think most of my problems are because I have a Verizon phone, and I think it works less well with Verizon. But most of the time it's great, and it's really an easy way to record. I also use a service called Temi, which is just online. You just type Temi in to the internet, and it transcribes my audio files once I have them. It costs about 10 cents a minute. So if I do a 20 or 30-minute interview, that's $2 or $3, which when I'm being paid for writing, that's really a minimal charge. It's not perfect. If people speak quickly, it might blur words together into some weird mash word instead of clarifying the phrase. It's not going to always get medical words, but it usually gets close enough that I can decipher it and figure it out. And I don't need every single word of my transcriptions to be exact. If you need exact transcriptions, you probably want to find a different service. That's what works for me. I love hearing what other people use. If you have other technology you like that works well for you, please share in the comments. I'm always excited to hear new tips and strategies. And if you do interview subject matter experts and have other strategies that you use, please share also. So this is something that I think if you end up doing it, I think you will enjoy. You know, the first couple times I interviewed SMEs, I was a little nervous about it because they do tend to be high profile people, but it's really fun, and you get to learn about some things that otherwise you wouldn't get to learn about, and you get an insider's perspective. And I think one of the fun things about being a freelance writer, and maybe a writer in general, is that you get to learn about a variety of topics, and every time you get an assignment, it's like a whole new window into life and an area of life that you get to experience and get a little snippet of, oh, that's what this person does, and that's what this person does. And this is a real exciting opportunity to do that. So I hope this was helpful for you, and please feel free to reach out with any questions or comments. Thanks, guys.